Welcome back to the Film Library, a Kanopy podcast. I'm Kristy Puchko, Mashable's entertainment editor.
And I'm Jeff Rauseo, film lover, movie marathoner, and lifelong believer that the truth is out there.
This week, we're throwing down a cinematic showdown for the ages with aliens versus monsters. That's right. We're each building our ultimate lineup, and only one side can come out on top.
On my side, I've got the extraterrestrials. Think UFOs, little green men, terrifying invasions, and maybe a few misunderstood space visitors. The universe is big, and my list was even bigger.
And I'm taking Team Monster. We're talking creatures of the night, beasts from the deep, and grotesque giants who just want to be left alone, but may also crush some people. You know, the classics.
From sci-fi horror to campy creature features, we're battling it out for genre supremacy with picks that are out of this world or straight out of your nightmares.
So settle in, choose your fighter, and get ready for a wildly fun debate full of claws, fangs, and a few conspiracy theories. But before we kick things off, I got a question for you, Jeff. In the hypothetical setting where Godzilla is going to fight a boatload of xenomorphs, who is coming out on top?
So I initially wanted to go Godzilla, just pure mass and power. But the more I thought about this, xenomorphs, smart creatures, little coordinated attack, the acid, you cut a couple legs down off of Godzilla, all of a sudden he becomes a lot less powerful. So I'm thinking if they start smart and they can burn off a couple toes, maybe a foot, Godzilla is then, that's a tough fight. You're down and out,
It is an interesting argument. They do have acid blood, which I think is a potential downside, because even if he gets in there, there's some... But also, Godzilla is, you're like, oh, you cut a leg off. And I'm like, have you seen Godzilla? That's not a quick solution.
It's a lot of acid. They'd have to sacrifice a lot of xenomorphs to get there.
That's like a lumberjack at a 300-year-old redwood. That's an effort. I think xenomorphs are definitely, the most... I would say formidable alien I've seen in a movie, but it's still Godzilla, man. He could do that power up. They can't even get close.
I know. And I'm thinking before the spaceship even lands, Godzilla just, lava breathes it down and it's it might be one shot and done, but they've got to get the spaceship in, land it. They've got to get off all before they just get, the nuclear breath of Godzilla on them. So
might be a question of terrain. Well, I do think this actually nods nicely into my first pick. When we're talking monster movies of monsters that I wouldn't pick a fight with, I'm going to start The Host from 2006. It's from Bong Joon-ho. It was right after he did Memories of Murder. And for a lot of American audiences, it was therefore their first introduction for him. I remember the posters in the theater of this monster grabbing this little schoolgirl and just being like, what is this? And what a thrill. This is one I saw in theaters. It just really knocked me out. And it's about a monster that comes out of Seoul's Han River and kidnaps a little girl, and how her family is not very equipped on how to deal with that. There is a political aspect to it, which I think is really cool because, one, it's Bong Joon-ho, and as you get into his filmography, you're obviously. But also it feeds into, that era of monster movie that we see both with Godzilla and Japan and, their reaction to radioactivity and what was that going to do to the world. And on the American Cold War side, we saw a lot of that with a lot of B movies about what if ants were giant? What if the blob? There was a lot of fear around that. So this is taking that energy, but instead of it being radioactive, it is biomedical waste that Americans dump into the river. And just a really good, scary monster that the why of it is background, and most of it is just, if something crawled out of the river and rampaged, what would you do? And it's so effectively showcased in this that it's terrifying, and I think makes it feel very real. So I'm a big, big fan of this one, and I feel like the monster from The Host, it's not one I'd want to mess with.
No, and that was my first introduction to Bong Joon-ho, and I agree, kind of hooked me on his stuff. I will say as well, if anybody's in LA or visiting the Academy Museum, I was just there. There's a whole thing on The Host and Bong Joon-ho, which is really cool if you're a fan of his. It had his VHS bootleg collection, which was super cool to look at, and it had all the storyboards for The Hosts and all background on the CGI and how they did it. But that is an incredible movie with a great monster, and I feel like it's kind of I don't know, like smaller scale than a lot of the big monster stuff that happens.
Yeah, it's not
too,
quite like
which
a
is
kaiju,
nice.
but
Yeah,
it's
it's
still
kind
a
of nice and
substantial.
contained.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is it's kind of different. It's kind of neat.
And yeah, as you
Um,
know, we talked about in our, I think it was our first episode. I do love a movie where a monster attacks Soul because I also love Colossal. Also on Kanopy, very
yep,
different vibe. Do check it out.
that is a very different vibe. Very different vibe. Well, I've got one that is, I would say, a different vibe too. This is one of the most interesting alien movies to me because Arrival, it's 2016. Denis Villeneuve, who I love, he's one of my favorite directors. And you got Amy Adams, Jeremy Renner, and Forrest Whitaker. So you got an incredible cast. Like, we think this movie's going to be great. I thought it was this big, like, alien invasion movie, but it really kind of takes that aliens land on Earth premise, which everyone's done a million times, and flips it on its head a little bit because we're not working with like scientists and the military fighting the aliens. Like, we've got Amy Adams, who's a linguist, who's actually trying to talk to them, and there isn't like there's this fear of aggression and the global panic, but it's not because they're attacking, it's because they're trying to interpret what they're telling them, which could be, you guys have a week left before we destroy you, or it could be, hey, we want to be friends. So that is
We've been
kind
trying to
of
get in contact with you about your car insurance.
car insurance. Yeah, like your warranty is expiring. So we don't know what they're going to talk about. But this whole film also goes back. I mean, it ties into like grief and just like communication and perception of time. And it's, you know, the movie doesn't really have like a twist, but it kind of reframes everything that's happened in her character's life. And also has this big scale of like all the geopolitical chaos that's going on. And, you know, she's kind of carrying this huge weight as the linguist who's like, if I don't figure this out, like the world's going to keep going crazy. Like, this is on me to decipher or it's all over. And the cinematography in it is wild. It's some of the coolest alien creatures that I've seen. The way they communicate is very interesting. It's very different with these kind of like ink blobs almost. And Johan Johansson's score is incredible. So if you like kind of a deeper sci-fi, this is alien invasion, but at a more like existential level. And it definitely isn't like Independence Day alien invasion. Will Smith's not going to punch an alien in the face and welcome them to Earth. This is a much different vibe. But if you like that and you like Denis Villeneuve and obviously what he's done with Dune, and I mean, I think you could see some of that here and why he made so much sense to take on a big sci-fi epic like that.
I love that. I'm going to move on to my pick, which I don't have a good segue for, but it's Bram Stoker's Dracula from 1992, and it is for me a very formative film that I saw way too young. A little callback to the parents of the 80s and 90s who really weren't paying attention to what their children were watching. This is directed by Francis Ford Coppola, and I am positively obsessed with this movie. I actually realized today that I have a little tchotchke, that it's like a little secrets box, and when you open it, there's a little surprise. There's a little more Winona in this. And what's hilarious is this is just something that someone Mod Podge that I bought at a craft sale. But yeah, Bram Stoker's Dracula, it is a deeply, deeply horny interpretation of this, but also one where like the monstrousness of it is very exciting because like Gary Oldman is probably the sexiest Dracula. Throw that out there. Take that, Nosferatu. But also like he shapeshifts and there's like this ferocity and there's like this love story and revenge plot. And like, I love that if you were Winona Ryder, cool. If you're any other character, watch out. Yeah. Dracula has no patience for you, or you trying to get in the way of this is a family show, romantic pursuits.
His interests.
But like this is truly a great movie. It's so crazy because like I remember at the time watching it and just being like, movies can be this, and like at the time it was Oscar nominated for like costume and production design and all the things you would think based on how gorgeous and strange this movie looks. But like performance-wise, people didn't necessarily get it. A lot of people critique Keanu Reeves in this, and I like him as Jonathan. I feel like if you wanted to find someone in the 90s who was like the anti-Gary Oldman and who like represented a very different kind of masculinity that was just non-threatening, it's Keanu Reeves. I feel like it's well cast. I also love the possibly apocryphal story that maybe Winona Ryder and Keanu Reeves accidentally got married while making this movie. I don't ever need to know that's not real. I prefer it. I assume it's canon and we can all move on. But like truly real, really good monster movie in that like vampires are like kind of like some of the most steeped in our culture monsters, but we do tend to get caught up in like, they're so sexy. And I get it. We get to be like, what if you had flawless skin and da 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 da? And I'm a big Interview with Vampire fan. I mean that the books, I mean that about the movie that Anne Rice hated and then later said was good. And I mean that about the new series, who, if you saw the Comic-Con footage, Vampire Lestat's gonna rule. But like, Bram Stoker's Dracula, it was sexy and strange and scary in a way that is very uniquely its own. And if I had to pick a version of a vampire that I definitely wouldn't want to anger, it'd be this guy. It'd be the warlord who sold his soul to get back with his girl. That is a passion I am not getting in the way of.
Yeah, no, too many red flags there. I agree. That's a swipe left or right. I don't know. I don't know the dating apps well enough. We're swiping one way and getting rid of that Dracula though, because he is, yeah. And Gary Oldman's just the best, just the shapeshifter of all shapeshifters, like what he does in that movie. But it's so beautiful. I love I think it's having a moment because it's had an anniversary and it had a 4K Blu-ray that came out and it looks gorgeous. And vampires are having a moment too with Nosferatu and Sinners. And so if you haven't seen this one and you're a vampire person,
or if you were like, Sinners was pretty hot, check us out.
Yeah, that's true.
They're very different movies, but you can't go wrong.
Very different. Well, I don't think I have a good segue either because this is such a strange alien movie that I'm going to talk about here called I'm Totally Fine. But I loved it. I love the weird. It's super indie, directed by Brandon Dermer, who's done a lot of music videos. You've probably seen his work. He's worked with like Blink-182, a lot of like pop punk bands. He's done commercials. But this was his movie, and it's got Jillian Bell, who most people maybe I shouldn't say most people my age know from Workaholics. She's been in a lot of other things, but she was Jillian in Workaholics, and then Natalie Morales. And it's kind of like a rival, like it's an alien story, but it is not like alien invasion blowing up cities, because personally I kind of like a more nuanced, like what would an alien maybe be like if it really ended up here and wanted to have a relationship with humans and not just destroy us. We'll get to that kind of alien. But basically, you got Jillian Bell. She's mourning the sudden death of her best friend, Jennifer. Starts sad. She goes on a solo weekend retreat to decompress. And then Natalie Morales shows up, looks exactly like Jennifer, says she's an alien who's using Jennifer's body to study human behavior. So it's really a pretty tight movie. It's low budget. It's kind of like one location. They're pretty much just in this rental house talking, but it gets, comedic elements. There's grief. There's sci-fi. It's kind of offbeat. Jillian Bell is actually playing it straight, which is for some reason funnier because she's always so wild. And there's like it's a lot of dialogue, but it's a really nice movie to watch. It's one of those small little movies that just like no big effects, there's no crazy makeup, but it's like a cosmic therapy session, which is kind of cool. Like it's a nice reminder that not every alien story has to have invasions and conspiracy. And sometimes like, the most unsettling thing about this movie is probably Jillian's character Vanessa like trying to confront her emotions and dealing with loss, all with this extraterrestrial comedy. And it sounds sad, but like it is funny. It's a darker comedy. I mean, it deals with grief, but you've got very funny people in this, very funny people who made it. So it does have plenty of comedy elements, but it's kind of like this one-on-one therapy session, as if your best friend who you've lost can come back as an alien, and you just like have this session with them, this send-off, which is, it's really it's really kind of cute and nice and small in that way. And I love a little movie like that. So I wanted to make sure to shout it out because it's definitely an under the radar, very much an indie movie, but one of the better alien movies I've seen in a while in a weird roundabout way of dealing with aliens.
Oh, I'll have to check that one out. I missed it when it did its like festival run, but I remember seeing it around.
Yeah, it's Brandon did a good job. Shout out. He follows me. So no bias here. I watched his movie before he followed me, and then I posted about it and we started talking, and he's a great guy who made a really cool movie. So I wanted to give him props for that one, especially since it's on Kanopy. You guys can all check it out.
Nice. Well, for my last monster movie, I did a kind of reversal. A lot of monster movies are about monsters kind of invading human spaces and like taking the society that we think that protects us and like disrupting that. This is the opposite. Trollhunter from 2010 is about a group of college students who are making a documentary for their school, and it's about how bears are dying strangely in this area of Norway, and they think it's because of poachers. So they're like very like, we're gonna act, we're activists, we're gonna get out there. But then they meet the Trollhunter. And it is maybe one of my favorite introductions in a monster movie ever, because it's just this man, and he is burly, and he is wearing like hunting gear, and he has a big beard, and he just goes, "Troll!" And then they all have to run because trolls are huge. And like, I love a troll movie. There are a variety of them. The Troll 2 is also on Kanopy if you want something that's like campier and deeply weird. But Trollhunter, underseen, really good. It reminded me of like Jurassic Park, because it's like these people who are kind of like understandably like skeptical of this concept that's being presented to them. And then they're like, oh, trolls are real. Oh no, they're enormous. And they're all over the place. And it becomes this really cool found footage movie about like what happened to this team that found this. And what's really cool about it is like, I was not familiar at all with the filmmaker. This was his first feature, but he hired a comedian, Otto Jespersen, to play the Trollhunter, but he plays it totally straight. And so like for Norwegians, there's like an added layer to like just watching someone play totally against type. But it's such a good movie that when it came out, I made my own t-shirts to go see it in. Like, I saw it at a critic screening and was just telling all my friends, like, this movie rules. I'm making t-shirts. We're going to see it. And like, I have this somewhere I have a printed photo, because 2010. And it's like me and my friends and several of us are wearing t-shirts that I made myself to just be excited about this movie. And it's from Andre Overdahl, who you might have heard of because he's made other really great horror movies, including The Autopsy of Jane Doe, which so is, it's like a really like claustrophobic kind of witchy movie.
Yeah.
And then one that I think deserved better, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, based on those horrific folklore novels that we all read as kids, collections of stories rather. And both of those are also on Kanopy. So this is kind of a 3 for pick, man. You guys you can dive in and just see how scary his stuff is. I would say of the 3, this is probably the least scary, but it's like the most exciting. It's like the kind of monster movie, like I said, like Jurassic Park, that is about like the adventure of what if the world were more magical than we gave it credit for, but also that's upsetting. So truly, I love Trollhunter, and it's only PG-13. So this is kind of like a cool thing that like, if you want to watch something with like a kid who's starting to get into horror movies, turn on the subtitles and let's go. Like truly, you won't go wrong. Trollhunter rules.
Yeah, you could probably do a full ramp up for like a 12, 13-year-old and go Trollhunter, Scary Stories. And then if they're really vibing with it, you can try Autopsy, but that's a heavy one.
I will flag Autopsy, as it is a movie about an autopsy, involves a lot of
there's a lot of stuff in it.
Nudity and
it would depend on the
body
kid.
horror. Yeah, maybe not 12 or 13.
I said it was a ramp up.
Yeah.
Maybe, as they get older.
Yeah, like not as like an afternoon. This is not a marathon 3 for.
No, don't do a triple feature all at once.
I do think Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, though. I came out of that and was like, oh, this is awesome. And then people were like mixed on it. I think it's a really good interpretation. And it is another one where there's like ghosts and monsters and creepy things. And I think it's such a beautiful interpretation. He made it with like Guillermo del Toro producing. And it's such a beautiful interpretation of those stories that really keeps in mind the illustrations that gave us all nightmares.
Yes.
So like, yeah, I think like if it depends on what level of scares you want, whether you started Trollhunter or started Scary Stories, but they're all on Kanopy and they're all really good movies.
Yeah, that was my favorite thing about Scary Stories was I was like, if you're gonna make this movie, at least stick to those original illustrations. And they nailed it. Like I was very, very happy. The 10-year-old in me who read those and scared himself to death was so happy that they nailed the illustrations because now they don't make them. You can't find the book with those illustrations.
100%. Throwing back to, again, how parents of the 90s, wild time that we were all allowed to read that. They're like, oh, you're reading? Great. I'm like,
I've got a copy, though. If anyone needs one, I've got my original copy that my kids will get someday. So we're keeping the illustrations alive. But yeah, that's a great movie. And my favorite, I think, of the three, just because I love those stories so much growing up. You've got big trolls. Now I'm going to talk about a movie with little aliens who look disgusting like trolls and are some of the just ugliest things on screen. And they come from Bad Taste, which is from 1987. So I've been saving. You guys know I get weird on here and I pick weird B horror movies a lot. I tricked you with the first two. Now we're getting into that. Bad Taste was directed, written, produced, and stars Peter Jackson, who obviously Lord of the Rings, right? He's massive. But this was his first movie. He made it with some friends and a little budget back in New Zealand in his home. And it feels like something that came from another planet. Super simple plot. Aliens land in the New Zealand town. They start harvesting people to use as meat for their fast food franchise back on their home planet. And a government task force of misfits is sent in to stop them. And that's really what the movie is. It's gory, slapstick, very proudly disgusting. Jackson did all the makeup. He did the effects himself. It's rough and handmade, and he also plays multiple characters, sometimes within the same scene. But there's just like this fun energy to the whole thing. Like you can tell that he's having an absolute blast making this movie. And as an alien film, it's like, you know, it's definitely less about ideas like the first two and more just about straight up gross out fun. It's very satirical. It's buried under gallons of fake blood and exploding heads, and it became a cult classic for kind of good reason. It, you know, kind of launched Peter Jackson's career. I think people loved the homemade aspect of it and everything that he could do on his own with like essentially a $0 budget. You know, paved the way for Dead Alive, which is another just completely gross out splatterfest type movie. And then, you know, now he goes on Lord of the Rings, King Kong. Now he's doing excellent documentaries, which I've been enjoying quite a bit lately. But this is where Peter Jackson all started. So it's one of the strangest, weirdest things you'll see. But if you're down for something different and you want to see a bunch of aliens and humans just kind of get into this gory splatterfest, I think you'll like it. And I did want to shout out too, I saw a movie a couple weeks ago. It's going to be coming to theaters called Jimmy and Stiggs. And it's very similar to this. This guy made a movie, Joe Begas, in his apartment during COVID, where it's like alien abduction and they come in and it's a mess and it's very bad taste. So it's just something you would have seen in the 80s. I was glad that somebody was taking it on again and trying this kind of film, just small, all practical effects, neon soaked. It was wild, but that's what reminded me of Bad Taste and made me go watch it again because I love that kind of thing.
That's a wrap on Aliens versus Monsters. We hope your watch list is twice as weird, twice as thrilling, and possibly twice as slimy.
We'll drop all our picks in the show notes and over on Kanopy's Letterboxd HQ account. If you want to stream any of these intergalactic adventures, just head to Kanopy.com, all free with your library card or university login.
And be sure to subscribe to the Film Library to catch all of our upcoming episodes. And if you liked the monster mash of an episode, leave us a review, or better yet, tell us who you think won today's showdown.
Yeah, let us know. Are you team alien or team monster? Drop your vote in the comments or tag us on social.
You can find me on Instagram at the Kristy Puchko, and I am on Blue Sky and Letterboxd. Just search for Kristy Puchko. That's KristyPuchko.
And I'm Jeff Rauseo on Instagram, TikTok, Letterboxd, and anywhere you do social media. Just search my name, JeffRauseo. Friendly alien vibes guaranteed.
And thank you for listening. And remember, whether it's monsters, aliens, or both, the real terror is running out of good movies to watch.